Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. R. Balasashireka, Assistant Professor, Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Avinashilingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, Coimbatore. In previous session, we learnt about the importance of water. Several mechanisms work in unison to maintain the water balance in the human body. The intake of water by an individual varies with age, physical activity, climate, environmental conditions and functioning of the kidney. The amount of water excreted in the form of urine depends upon the amount of water and electrolyte composition of the blood. The maintenance of water output involves cascade of coordinated reactions between the various organs of the body, specifically kidneys, hypothalamus and endocrine glands. By the end of this section, you will be able to explain how water levels in the body influence the taste cycle. Identify the main route by which water leaves the body. Describe the role of aldosterone hormone and its effect on body water levels. Define the components of water balance. Water balance. Maintenance of water balance is achieved by the body by equating the amount of water intake and water excreted. Water intake includes the water drunk, water present in the foodstuffs and metabolic water, that is, water obtained from the metabolism of foodstuffs along with the metabolism of body tissues. Water output includes the water loss from the urine, feces, through the skin and to an extent from the lungs. It is roughly estimated that the volume of water drunk is equivalent to the water excreted in the form of urine. The simplest way of measuring changes in body water is by daily measurement of body weight and has a nearest accuracy. Among the components mentioned in the water balance, intake of fluid and volume of urine excreted are controlled by the homeostasis mechanism. This mechanism creates a sense of thirst and cravings for salt. Through skin, lungs and feces, about a liter of water is lost per day. The majority of water is excreted through kidney by directly controlling the volume of bodily fluids. This water excretion is directly controlled by vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone secreted by hypothalamus and reduces the urinary volume. The moment kidney cells receives command from the pituitary, blood filtering function slows down and sometimes even starts to retrieve water from the filtered out liquid waste. Thus, the water channels are inserted into the membranes of the cells lining the collecting ducts by ADH and thus reabsorption occurs. Dilute urine is excreted if there is no ADH, as only little water is reabsorbed by the collecting ducts. Thus, ADH secretion stimulates the thirst mechanism when there is water deficit in the body. In another process, the pituitary helps in regulating the water level in the blood. The ADH slows down the production of saliva from the salivary glands and makes the individual feel thirsty. This instincts an individual to drink water. When the body water is excess, reverse process takes place. The water excess produces decreased osmolality of all body fluids and inhibits thirst center and osmoreceptor center, ceasing the thirst. In the absence of vasopressin, water diuresis occurs along with reduced water absorption in the renal tubules. The factors that influence aldosterone secretion are: when the plasma level gets too concentrated, the hypothalamus increases the plasma osmolarity and stimulates ADH secretion. When larger volume of blood returns to the heart from the veins, the stretch receptors in the atria inhibit ADH secretion and get rid of excess fluid volume. When blood pressure goes down, the stretch receptors of aorta and carotid arteries stimulates ADH secretion, thus maintaining the volume of blood pressure and supply blood to the tissues. Water balance is thus controlled by thirst mechanism and secretion of vasopressin. These two mechanisms in turn are dependent on the extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid osmolality, which are equilibrium with each other. This states that the total amount of body water is determined by the amount of osmotically active solutes like ions of sodium, potassium and others. Now we will move on to the components of water balance. Thirst. Thirst is defined as an instinct to drink water. This may be either due to decrease in body fluids or increase in the concentration of salts. If the volume of the body fluid goes below a certain limit or the concentration of the osmolytes increases beyond a limit, signal is immediately produced by the pituitary of the brain and stimulates thirst. Thirst may be of two types, namely intracellular thirst and extracellular thirst. Intracellular thirst occurs due to increased concentration of osmolyte. Extracellular thirst is due to decreased concentration of blood volume termed as hypovolemia. Hypovolemia may be due to blood loss, prolonged vomiting, severe diarrhea, and the heart cannot circulate the blood efficiently, resulting in heart failure. Blood vessels become constricted and pumping of the blood decreases. This loss of blood volume affects the kidney and stimulates thirst for both water and salt through renin-angiotensin system. Renin-angiotensin system. Renin-angiotensin system is activated by hypovolemia, which is sensed by the cells of the kidney. Decreased concentration of blood volume stimulates the secretion of an enzyme called renin. In the blood, renin catalyzes the protein angiotensinogen to inactive form of angiotensin 1. The inactive angiotensin 1 gets converted to active angiotensin 2 by the presence of an enzyme present in the blood. Angiotensin 2 reaches the posterior pituitary gland and adrenal cortex by traveling through the blood. A cascade effect of hormones helps the kidney to retain water and sodium and increases the blood pressure. Subfornical organ. It is nothing but a thirst regulating structure in the brain, initiates the drinking mechanism and salt appetite. The detailed system of angiotensin is depicted in the below figure. Next, osmometric thirst. When the solute concentration of the interstitial fluid increases, it is termed as osmometric thirst. The water inside the cells comes out and volume of the cell decreases or shrinks. High intake of sodium in the diet or decrease in volume of the extracellular fluids help to increase the solute concentration of the interstitial fluids. The decrease in extracellular fluid volume may be due to perspiration of the skin, increased urination, respiration, and defecation. Osmometric thirst causes cellular dehydration through osmosis. Water thus moves to the extracellular compartment from the cells of the body through the membrane. The concentration of the blood plasma and the presence of angiotensin 2 in the blood are sensed by the osmosis receptors of the subfornical organ. The median preoptic nucleus of the brain get activated and trickles thirst mechanism. Salt craving. Hypovolemia induces craze for both water and salt. The requirement of salt by the body increases because of the activation of the renin-angiotensin system. Coming to the role of kidneys. It is merely not that the excess water consumed is excreted as urine through the kidney. The solute also finds its way for excretion through urine. The chief solutes excreted through urine are the products from protein metabolism, specifically urea, and the ions of sodium and potassium from the food eaten. On an average, 1000 milliosmol per day of solute is excreted, for which about 1 liter of urine must be excreted. This volume of urine excretion per day depends upon each individual's food consumption. Persons who eat non-vegetarian food items excrete double the volume of solute, as meat metabolism is the major source of urinary urea, ions of potassium, phosphate, and sodium chloride. Vegetarians and small quantity of meat eaters excrete less volume of urea and urinary solutes. Fecal matter. The volume of fluid secreted per day into the alimentary canal is all reabsorbed. Normal healthy individual consuming a diet with indigestible fiber excretes approximately 50 to 400 grams of feces per day. 75% by weight of the fecal matter is water and is hypertonic with a pH range of 5 to 8. The fecal ions in solution are anions of short-chain fatty acids, potassium, and bicarbonates. Along with these, anions of calcium, magnesium, and phosphate are also precipitated in insoluble forms. Skin. Sweat glands are seen all over the skin. Perspiration of water takes place through the exterior of the skin. Insensible fluid loss occurs through the skin in temperate climate, where small amounts of perspiration takes place without the knowledge of the individual at rest. Sweat through perspiration of the skin helps to cool the body. When the body temperature increases, either due to ambient temperature or due to muscular exertion, the volume of sweat increases. The liquid sweat on the skin becomes evident. The loss is also through the lungs. Water is lost from the body through lungs while breathing. At a pressure of 1 atmospheric pressure, the air leaving the lungs get saturated with the water vapor. This can be explained by breathing in cold temperature. In chill climatic condition, the exhaled breath becomes visible by the condensation of water picked up in the lungs with a fine mist. Thus, the relationship between the amount of water vapor carried by air at complete saturation depends on temperature is established. Fever, reduced water content of inspired air, reduced ambient temperature, atmospheric pressure, and relative humidity increases the water loss from the lungs. Coming to electrolytes and mineral salts. Sodium. Sodium is the major solute present in the extracellular fluids and determines the osmolarity of extracellular fluids. Osmolarity is nothing but the amount of solute per unit volume. Sodium regulates the total volume and also regulates the osmolarity of bodily fluids. Cells either shrink or swell and damage the cell structure and disrupts the normal cellular function when there is extreme variation in osmolarity. Balanced intake and excretion of sodium along with water regulates the osmolarity. Both regulation of volume and osmolarity must be integrated, or else the water volume may have diluted or concentrated effect on body fluids. When the body gets dehydrated, more water is lost than sodium and osmolarity of body fluids will increase. So, water must be consumed. Whereas, in cases of loss of blood due to surgery or other conditions, loss of sodium and water are proportionate to the composition of body fluids and the body requires both sodium and water. Thus, aldosterone plays a vital role in reducing the concentration of sodium diluting the body fluids. Aldosterone, a hormone produced by adrenal cortex, plays an important role by reabsorbing sodium in the distal nephron of the kidney, thus preventing the decrease of osmolarity below normal. The secretion of aldosterone is controlled by. The aldosterone secretion is inhibited when the osmolarity increases than normal. This decrease in aldosterone reabsorbs less sodium in the distal tubule. The adrenal cortex directly senses plasma osmolarity. ADH secretion will increase to conserve water. This effect of low aldosterone levels decreases the osmolarity of body fluids, thus will have less urine output. The mechanism involved is well explained in the figure. When the blood pressure decreases, juxtaglomerular cells in the afferent and efferent arterioles produce renin and triggers to raise the blood pressure, thus conserving volume. This renin in turn initiates the production of angiotensin II followed by adrenal cortex to produce aldosterone. The figure below mentioned well explains the angiotensin II, its effect. The next mineral is potassium. Potassium carry an electric charge, that is, cation of the intracellular fluid and also a constituent of the extracellular fluid. It is required for the normal building and functioning of the cells, muscles and nerves. During muscular contraction, potassium in the muscle cells are lost into the extracellular fluid and return to the muscle cells after contraction. The variation in concentration may lead to hyperkalemia or hypokalemia. The decrease in blood potassium levels may be due to the increase in rate of glycogen deposition within the cell and in alcoholysis. Under this condition, potassium enters into the cell from the blood. On the contrary, due to catabolism of the body tissue and in acidosis, the blood potassium level increases, establishing that potassium is moving out of the cell to maintain an acid-base balance. This change in potassium levels in blood may lead to abnormal heart rhythm or cardiac arrest. This is because the kidneys are not able to excrete potassium. The balance in potassium is achieved matching the amount of potassium consumed to the amount lost. The loss of potassium through urine is 7%. Foods and drinks rich in electrolytes, including potassium, increase the levels in the body and is lost through urine, digestive tract and sweat. Potassium levels are also influenced by the movement of potassium into and out of cells in certain health conditions where drug is consumed. Many biological reactions within the cell are catalyzed by potassium. The sodium level and potassium level in the intracellular material are counteracted and interfere with the synthesis of proteins. Potassium plays a vital role in the maintaining the osmotic pressure of the cell by maintaining acid-base balance. How to control the blood volume? The concentration of sodium has a direct relation on the concentration of fluid in blood and cells surrounding them. The volume of the blood and concentration of the sodium is constantly and continuously monitored by the body. When the concentration changes, either becomes too high or too low, impulses are immediately sent to the heart, blood vessels and kidney to observe the change. Kidneys are stimulated to act accordingly to maintain water balance in the body. To conclude, water balance is controlled by various hormones, in particular by ADH, thus regulating the body temperature and thirst mechanism. Components of water include cravings for both water and salt, which is controlled by renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, which we have seen in detail. The excretion of fluid not only takes place through urine but also through fecal matter, skin and lungs. Mineral elements like ions of sodium and potassium along with aldosterone helps in maintaining the acid-base balance in the body. Thank you.